Van Q's face turned pale with worry for Thine Fam's life. If it's like this, even the remaining bones will be burned to ashes. You'll regret this, you foolish brat. A sharp blade of poisonous gas shot out from within the toxic bone screen, starting the old man. He quickly deployed his Kai shield to resist the protagonist's attack. The animation followed, leaping out with a clenched fist, ready to deliver to his opponent. Bachgo finally realized how terrifying his opponent was. His skin was being burned. Was it his natural regeneration ability, or something else? Thane Fam's punch hit the poisonous demon sect leader's chest forcefully. He couldn't withstand this aggressive strike from below. The audience watching couldn't see anything due to the thick dust and smoke. Thane Fam's subordinates cried and wailed, thinking their leader couldn't survive. With such a large amount of poison, even if he's powerful, his bones will still decay. These words were spoken, but Ko Vong noticed something unusual. The protagonist's figure flew out from within with a loud explosion, shaking the entire arena. Tom Guyot was about to end this phase on the scoreboard when he suddenly realized something. Why did Bachgo use such a despicable move? Just as he scolded, he also noticed something strange. The poisonous demon sect leader's body lay limp in a corner. Thane Fam stepped out with a lot of internal force surrounding him. Indeed, he wasn't affected by his opponent's poison at all. The Ninth Senior Master was surprised. How could he withstand Bachgo's poison? 20 years ago, during the martial arts battle, he witnessed Bachgo's poison millions of times, which brought death everywhere it went. Alongside that, the antidote masters in the martial arts world left no trace on their corpses because the poison had corroded everything. This even surprised Lai Ho Min, even though he had witnessed Bachgo's poison firsthand. Now tired and exhausted, Bachgo stood up. Despite using his internal Kai shield, his bones were still crushed from the combined internal and external force, exceeding imagination. Truly incredible recovery ability. Are you still human? Just as he was thinking this, Thane Fam's voice rang out, warning him, "You can stand up now, sir." Then he continued to use the Heavenly Blade technique. The 12th Senior Master hadn't regained his composure to bring out his staff to resist when he realized it was missing. He had no other choice but to use his strongest technique. The internal force mixed with poison continued to spread out, countering all of the protagonist's attacks. Although Nano had removed the poison and healed the wounds, the speed couldn't keep up with Bachgo. Mio laughed loudly, trying to intimidate his opponent. With that, he shot out all the poison around because it was too dangerous. Thane Fam had to retreat and regroup, returning to face the situation. No one was better than anyone else now. Taking advantage of this time, he paid more attention to his opponent. The poison he released before wasn't the strongest, was it? The sect leader realized the strange poison, so now no one can stop him anymore. His technique, the deadly poison demon breaking technique at the 8th level, turned his body into a deadly toxin, including 100 different types of poison. It makes his body as tough as a shield. The terrifying power would melt even rocks and earth in an instant. I didn't expect you to force me to use this state, to see if your heavenly sword can stop it, Bachgo remarked. Clearly, he saw that the protagonist's weapon was ineffective. However, he didn't hesitate to change his defensive strategy. The white dragon blade plunged straight down with confidence. His aura became very confident, and the key force poured into the heavenly blade. With each passing day, it spreads out stronger and stronger. The audience once again found themselves unable to see anything. The subordinates could only helplessly worry about their leader. How foolish you are. Do you want to fight to the death? In Thine Fam's hand, the faintest traces of the heavenly demon sword technique began to emerge. Although small, Bachgo could sense that he still didn't understand what it was. Suddenly, Thane Fam's figure appeared behind him. The demonic sword was gradually taking shape in the palm of the 12th Senior Master's hand. Surely it was something no one wanted to face. You're too dangerous. I have to make a move first. The old man continued, pouring more internal force into his attack. But it all disappeared, having no effect of. The protagonist stood right in front and swung his sword towards the opponent's face, causing him to show fear and retreat. Due to being overwhelmed and confused, he didn't know what to do next. Bachgo's hands had gathered all of his 10 successful forces, and the opportunity had come. He quickly unleashed the deadly poisonous devil technique at the critical moment. Once again, a loud noise and billowing smoke filled the air. marking the decisive moment of victory or defeat in this battle. The leader of the demonic sect maintains his stance, seemingly unaffected. With just a glance at his eyes, it seemed that everything was not well. Hundreds of sharp swords relentlessly pierced his body. At this moment, he was truly helpless, unable to resist. The protagonist took the initiative, using his ultimate technique. He changed his grip on the sword and adjusted his posture, while his opponent buried his feet, moving at a speed faster than the blink of an eye. The heavenly profound sect leader quickly moved towards Bango, surpassing even the speed of a lightning bolt. The heavenly demon sword lightly passed through Bango's neck, sealing his fate. As the final outcome unfolded, most spectators couldn't discern anything amid the dust and smoke, and everything fell silent. Returning to the mundane world, the protagonist stepped out of the arena center. The audience's hearts raced, not knowing who he was. The protagonist, despite his victory, wasn't satisfied. He had only resorted to his ultimate technique and felt the need to become even stronger. The quest for revenge for his mother's death had just begun. After, the attendants carried Bango's body away, and the protagonist suddenly approached the sect leader and the elder. Without hesitation, the victory was declared in favor of the seventh martial artist from the demonic sect. Congratulations poured in from the subordinates. Seeing this scene, the young master of the demonic sect felt uneasy. Perhaps his grandmother's plan had failed. She quickly left. Indeed, the blood of the Thayan lineage was flowing within the sect leader's veins. He thought he would die before everyone due to the poison. But he never expected that the one beheaded would be the elder of the heavenly demon sect. Despite his victory, the protagonist was not completely satisfied. If he had to resort to his special technique, he needed to become stronger. The quest for revenge for his mother's death had only just begun. After the cleanup was done, the protagonist was invited to the office to meet the sect leader. Curious, he followed along, unsure of what would happen next. As he entered, the aura of Lai Ho Min immediately emanated. He expressed his gratitude for passing the 6th level test of the sect. This action piqued the protagonist's curiosity, prompting him to inquire about the reason behind it. Ho Min explained that traditionally, the sect had strict rules. But as he couldn't prove the protagonist's loyalty, he had to observe him closely. He then revealed that the protagonist had gained the trust of the Heavenly Ma founder. To prove his sincerity, he offered his badge, pledging loyalty to the sect. The protagonist, cautious, accepted it. As the close attendant of the sect leader, Ho Min's actions surprised the protagonist. He emphasized his seriousness, stating that although he couldn't help anyone, there were exceptions. He confirmed the protagonist as his assistant and handed over the badge, signifying his trust. This revelation, even within the sect, was rare knowledge. The current heavenly sword technique inherited by the sect leader was not the true technique of the Heavenly Ma founder. In reality, there was no sword involved. The protagonist, holding the technique, was proof of this. Despite this, the protagonist was also surprised. Ho Min revealed that the true sword technique passed down to the sect leader had been lost for 500 years. The office of attendants was divided into major, secondary, and minor positions. From the first founder to the current sect leader, the Mei sect never officially recognized outsiders of the 6 great sects. However, due to various reasons, the sect leader would marry a divine woman selected from the sacred fire temple as his wife. The child born from this union will become the next sect leader. Therefore, power was not concentrated in any one section. The most horrifying event in the demon sect occurred 500 years ago, marking the origin of the demon sect from the Bagu sect on the Shen River. After being selected as the sect leader, Thin Vu Hai had to pilgrimage throughout the heavenly mountains of the Shen River sect for 10 years. During this time, Thin Vu Hai embarked on the pilgrimage for 5 years. But upon returning, most people had perished, leaving only the great protector of Dharma. Although famous as one of the 5 Grand Masters of Trung Nguyen, he too fell victim to the Cup Dao Fan's ambush. Surprisingly, Naaman Chin, taken aback by the name spoken by Lai Ho Min, had heard this name several times before. At that time, only the sword demon was the most outstanding figure in the sect, with only one Taoist visitor whom he could not defeat, the extreme divine sword. Unfortunately, that year's sole offspring of the sect leader and the goddess, a half-fairy girl, could not inherit the sword technique. By the age of 8, Thin Vu Hai passed away, leaving no heir. Coincidentally, the elder Supreme Master also passed away due to a severe illness. Hence, everyone agreed to nominate the Great Master Kima as the deputy sect leader, who, with his leadership skills, restored order. Although skilled in swordsmanship, he couldn't restore the Heaven Demon sword art. He ventured into the Forbidden Zone for the first time as a non-blood descendant of the Fan family. Since then, even if the sect leader entered, he could not receive the blessing of the Heaven Demon Patriarch. While he could replicate the sword marks on the Fan Gok Thatch, he relied on internal energy, mental techniques, or decisive momentum to unleash the demon sword. After leaving the Forbidden Zone for 3 years, relying on the sword marks left on the stone tablets, he attained enlightenment and created the Heaven Demon sword technique. He then passed it on to the sect leader's daughter, and the Fan Gok Thatch tablets were transferred to various levels of the library. It's likely that the scholars have noticed the cross sword marks on the reverse side, left by him. Why would he leave sword marks there, damaging the Heaven Demon Patriarch's dignity? In reality, the demon sword had etched and directly rewritten the techniques in the manual onto the Fan Gok Thatch, which seemed highly beneficial at that time. One of the 5 Grand Masters, the Shaolin Great Master Kongman, was formidable, yet he too was slain by the Kuk Dao Fan and Tung Zhuan Hanam. Subsequently, the Jiequan Vong Luk Kim sect faced an even worse fate than the Shaolin Great Master. From this incident, one can understand that the high-ranking masters targeted the 5 Grand Masters of Trung Nguyen. 3 of the 5 Grand Masters died at the hands of the Kuk Dao Fan, earning him widely renown. Only the Sword Demon and the Wuning Chik Kiem remained. Reluctantly, they acknowledge him as the foremost master of the land. Even the Sword Demon admits that he couldn't rely solely on his own sword technique, as only by using the Heaven Demon sword technique of the Heaven Demon Patriarch could he defeat him. Thus, the elders agreed to allow him to use the stone tablets to refine his swordsmanship. The protagonist knew all this before, but couldn't understand how the destructive techniques were created by ordinary sword techniques. The story continues 4 years later when the Vodang Chekin was defeated, leaving only the Sword Demon and the Kuk Dao Fan to battle atop the 10,000 peaks of the Demon Sect. They fought for 4 days and nights without a clear winner. The Sword Demon suffered a slight disadvantage as he lost his most precious right arm. After this, the other Grandmaster never appeared again. Many speculated that regardless of whether he lived or died, he would forever remain the foremost sword master of the land. In the end, time passed in the sect, witnessing changes as the Sword Demon lost his right arm in that battle, resigning as deputy sect leader. Thatan Hoi Vu's daughter, now 16, was appointed as the sect leader. Although this change seemed unreasonable, no one disagreed. 6 major sections, including Than Vu Ho, were forced to marry 5 husbands. 2 of them were disciples of the Sword Demon, leading to the separation of the Hein Ma sect and the Kien Ma sect. The remaining 3 became disciples of the first and third elder masters, establishing the Dao Ma sect, the Dak Ma sect, and the Yin Ma sect. As for the Sword Demon, he opened the demon Dao Quan to nurture his descendants. The young master, why did you mention this story? It wasn't just to establish the demon Dao Quan to nurture descendants. Precisely, there are 2 reasons. One is that the true heir of the Heaven Demon Patriarch's sword technique is still lacking, unable to retrieve the Heaven Demon sword art. However, he believes that someday in the future, someone from the Fan family will attain enlightenment. So he stubbornly kept the Forbidden Zone and the Fong Medong to protect it from the privileged sects until the true heir of the Heaven Demon Patriarch appears. He insisted that this person must become the sect leader. Despite 500 years passing, this wish hasn't been fulfilled. It was almost just the Great Protector's words until your appearance. Throughout this time, you displayed numerous Heaven Demon sword techniques in your sparring matches. Merely observing, I can discern that your sword style is indeed the Heaven Demon sword art. In fact, Lai Ho Min knew about this 3 years ago during the planned events of the Demon Dao Quan. Simply creating a posture was enough for him to immediately recognize his own Heaven Demon sword technique as extremely exquisite and noble. So why did this appear then? At that time, he still hadn't understood the true intention of the Heaven Demon Patriarch. It was just a technique, possibly something passed down to the incumbent sect leader, hence requiring further observation. However, witnessing the protagonist slay the Blood Demon made the Great Protector keenly realize that the future sect leader is you, 7th Young Master. Throughout this time, You've sparred with him, displaying the Heaven Demon sword technique countless times. However, it seems you're not aware of the sword technique you displayed. May I ask you again, have you risen to the Heaven Demon Patriarch's enlightenment? Upon hearing these words, Fan Fam didn't want to hide anything anymore, observing the expressions of joy from his master. Lai Ho Min requested to meet the true heir of the Heaven Demon Patriarch. So the Great Protector asked if he could ask him a question. Just now, you mentioned that the demon Dao Quang was established for 2 reasons. So, what is the other reason? It seems a bit difficult to explain, so Lai Ho Min then took Thin Pham with him, curious to explore the underground chamber. Although he knew the library had a secret chamber, it was his first time entering, thus he was quite surprised. The door here was closely guarded, needing up to 3 guards on duty at all times. When the Great Protector simultaneously to open it, the other 2 acted promptly. The sound of the heavy door moving echoed, emitting various unfamiliar scents. Following them, they carried out a coffin. Sensing this, Thin Pham wasn't yet certain what it was. Then, the Great Protector led him inside, pointing to the preserved body, saying this is the second reason. He rushed over to examine it closely. It was the severed arm of the sword demon, with the scent he noticed earlier being the medicinal herbs soaking the wounds. Glancing over them quickly, he understood they were from sword strikes, but not just any ordinary strikes. Thin Pham closed his eyes to try to understand more about what was in front of him. He could feel a sharp aura and consciousness deeply within. Facing off against him was a mysterious dark figure created by his mind. They tested each other's techniques, using the Vu Dao Fap in the 5th style of martial arts, with the shadow moving incredibly agilely. Their techniques were incredibly fantastic, and naturally, both sides were evenly matched. To elaborate, it might even be more potent than Thin Pham. At this moment, he understood that without using the Heaven Demon sword art, it would be a long time before he could defeat that sword technique. The sect leader explains that the severed arm indeed belongs to the sword demon, and these pieces of skin were from the bodyguards and the Great Protector of the sect who were ambushed 500 years ago. Additionally, he immediately opened the nearby box. This was the manual left behind by the sword demon before his death, containing the Tan demon sword, the 24 demon sword, and an analysis of the techniques of the Cup Dao. This place was not only established to find the true heir, but also to identify the disciples with the righteous heart of the sword demon. Specifically, this is where successors are trained to destroy the techniques of the Cup Dao Fan before facing their fate. He transmitted a few words about the unbeaten match between the sword demon and the Cup Dao Fan. Actually, during their battle, the mysterious master suddenly disappeared, perhaps indicating there are still many mysteries surrounding this. The protagonist needs to unravel everything, starting from the Heaven Demon sword art and the subsequent events in the sect. If he doesn't hold a higher position, it would be difficult for him to understand everything. Moreover, Cup Dao Fan promised to return to the sword demon, waiting for his opponent for 15 days. 15 years later, during the confrontation, his opponent still hadn't appeared. So for 500 years, nothing has changed. The Great Protector didn't believe that the descendants of the Cup Dao Fan would appear. He asked the protagonist to destroy the marks and fulfill the sword demon's wish. This underground archive has no time limit, so he entrusted the key to the protagonist. Although he can lock and unlock it from the inside, he will need the key to return. After the Great Protector left, Thin Pham quickly scanned through all the manuals left by the sword demon, especially the Tan demon sword. Although superior, it couldn't match the Heaven Demon sword art and the ability to destroy sword techniques. He planned to teach his subordinates the 24 demon sword, which is an improvement based on the foundation of the sword knife techniques. This technique was created to help the sword demon defeat the Cup Dao Fan. Just by glancing at it, he understood. However, the Cup Dao Fan's soul-piercing knife technique was superior to the 4th super of the Heaven Demon sword art. But if there were still other techniques, his Dao technique could be the only one to rival the Heaven Demon sword art. Despite being one step above, the power of the sword technique wasn't equal to the knife technique. The scars on the sword demon's arm were the final technique. Despite this, his Dao techniques still fell short of the Heaven Demon sword art. But if there were still other techniques, his Dao technique could be the only one to rival the Heaven Demon sword art. Yes, it's indeed a strange fate. The next day, after Thin Pham passed the level S test, Only 64 out of nearly 1,000 martial artists remained, marking the most successful result in the past 100 years of the Demon Dao Quan. The competition for the position of sect leader has completely changed. In the past, all candidates who passed the level, a test would start building their strength and compete with each other. However, the strongest candidate, Fen Hu Thien, was eliminated, and the head of the Sword Demon Sect also faced a similar fate. At present, only Fen Pham and Thien Mian remain. With only 5 months left before graduating from the Demon Dao Quan, the battle for the position of deputy sect leader of both will take place soon. Fan Tin Don was given full authority to handle external matters to focus on improving martial arts. Leaving that person alone like this, we'll miss the opportunity to make it difficult for him. Kuk Tran Thien, you're right in saying that, just as we're making it difficult for the one who has already won, the Lone Devil Sect's leader. How do we go about pulling in those 10 undecided individuals? If they join our side, it will be even better. So both of us are considering pulling in Tama Chak of the Tuma Sect and Honda of the Phi Hon Kwai Sect under our wing. They know the background of those individuals, who are not ordinary. Tama Chak's father is likely the Elder 9 of the Tuma Sect, and Honda's father is the second elder of the Phi Hon Kwai Sect. It's said that Thien Pham has buried his roots in the training room. Let's sever his limbs and deal with him once and for all, Kuk Tran Thien suggested. Recalling Kay's warning that interference interferes with the protagonist will not have a good outcome. We don't necessarily have to confront someone as powerful as him, do we? Muk Tin Don's intention is to borrow the strength of this enemy to suppress another enemy. We know that there are 4 individuals who ignore him intensely. The blood disciple of the Don Hyen sect. I don't understand what they're talking about. The next morning, in the cultivation room of the Nemen sect, the protagonist was still diligently practicing. Having returned from the library, it seemed that his martial arts had changed significantly. Now the protagonist only needed 100 diligent practices to master several new secret techniques from the Qi and Ma sect, along with a few basic moves, successfully executing the first technique in the Che Dao Then martial arts. Previously, he had struggled to understand it due to his lack of weak Qi determination, making it impossible to complete over the past 3 years and 3 months. Through numerous Nano analyses during cultivation, he had researched many martial arts to simulate weak Qi determination, which played a role in generating the power of techniques when executed countless times. This will help Thien Pham accurately perform the original techniques of the ancient 5 elements. However, Nano continued to analyze the weak Qi determination of the second technique after a tiring day. Now was the time to temporarily leave for the mess hall to satisfy his hunger. Today, the kitchen had prepared spicy noodles, just when he was craving it. The head chef noticed his slightly strange demeanor. His arms trembled to the point where he couldn't scoop up the broth properly nearby. A stranger was watching him intentionally. Seeing Thien Pham's attitude, the head chef began to explain, attributing it to fatigue from standing for too long. Then, the protagonist didn't bother to care anymore, and found a seat to enjoy his bowl of noodles. The eyes of the stranger became more sinister. Perhaps the protagonist noticed something suspicious about the food in front of him. Could it be that his tactics had been discovered? The stranger scrutinized his eating actions carefully. Thien Pham felt that something was wrong, but, inexplicably, he finished his meal in one go. The other guy grinned maliciously, and seemed very pleased. Later, outside the cultivation room, Thien Pham couldn't see the sect leader anywhere. He guessed that the leader had skipped dinner. He didn't encounter Vong Cat or Ho Bong in the dormitory either. They were probably out somewhere fighting. If Bak Ki arrived a little earlier, they could have gone to eat with that Kong Tu and Van Q. The protagonist felt that Tam Keem's behavior was strange. It seemed like he admired the sect leader excessively. Perhaps he didn't know Van Q's true identity as a woman, but the longer he looked, the more suspicious he became. After a while, Bach Kai finally arrived at the assembly point. You should think about the person waiting for you and be punctual. We arrived earlier than yesterday, and I'm starving, he complained. Suddenly, a group of unfamiliar people appeared, blocking their path. It turned out to be Kuk Tran Thien and his gang. It seemed that they had planned to make it difficult for Thien Pham's subordinates. At the same time, he was questioned by 4 unidentified individuals, all martial artists from the Nemen sect. Specifically, they were mainly descendants of the 6 great sects. One of them, holding a white silk scarf, confronting him directly, accusing him of ruining the reputation of their sect and harming his ancestor. Don't think you'll live peacefully after that. A commoner like you dares to claim the position of a sect leader? How can you even compare to Bu Dongkan? He said angrily. Thien Hu Thien was furious because of what happened to his younger brother, Thien Vien Liu. He was about to attack, preparing to deal with the accusations. However, Thien Pham interrupted, saying, "Whatever you're plotting, I'll never believe that the uncle in the mess hall poisoned the food. We don't know if he can prevent poison from entering the body through the internal energy, but how can you stop the poison that has already been ingested and spread throughout the body? Due to the spreading poison, you won't be able to use internal energy within 3 hours. Indeed, this guy planned to use Han's trick to make Thien Pham attack himself. You're about to meet your subordinates at the hospital, but don't think you'll survive and leave here alive," he said, frowning at the thought. He was certain that this person was plotting on behalf of the Blood Demon sect. If Muk Gayat takes action, things will get complicated. Then, without further ado, he said, "We don't have time. Let's finish this quickly." The Blood Demon sect leader, angry, drew his sword and charged forward. "You insolent fool! How dare you dare us after severing my sister's hand? Now, I'll sever both of your hands." The clash of two swords echoed loudly. Han Duet's sword was directly cut in half. The protagonist amplified his right arm, decisively attacking his opponent. "I told you I'm not free now," he said. But before he could finish his words, the opponent cried out in agony, unable to retaliate, clutching his injured arm and retreating home, without knowing if he could mend it in time. Bad Trite Ko looked afraid at the determination in Thien Pham's hand. It seemed to have drained all the soup from the pot in the kitchen. After hearing this, he inquired, "Is this what you call squeezing tightly and releasing a few drops of poison?" Lak Tra was in pain again, even more panicked than he had anticipated. "Can these tricks really harm me or not?" he thought, returning mentally to the time at the dining hall, when Nano analyzed the ingredients in Thien Pham's food. He realized that the components contained toxins that underestimate the body's energy. If he showed suspicion, the assailant wouldn't reveal himself. Nano could filter out harmful components to prevent them from entering his body. His face black turned from the terrifying poison used, which was beyond comprehension. The protagonist's body metabolized it quickly. He stopped lingering, avoiding more significant issues. The assassin's actions had disappeared, leaving the other three in fear. Perhaps the next strike would be from the blood cult, he thought, as he struck a heavy blow to his opponent from behind. This forceful strike hits the opponent's vital area, causing him to stagger backward and collapse in regret for falling for the deception of other sections. The wound on his chest hadn't healed. Would he have to go to the medical pavilion again? Thien Pham's actions were different this time. He approached Bui Dongkang without hesitation, ignoring Bad Trite Ko's pleas, and stomped on him to intensify the terror. Thus, Thien Hu Then's brothers received their retribution early, leaving the remaining two at loss. "It's your turn now," he said mockingly. They began to worry as they understood they would face consequences tonight. They will go home carrying their injured comrades. Luk Dai Tong's disciples wouldn't scare them. "Do you fear us, or the 6 great sects?" Thien Pham asked, manipulating his vital energy towards the assassin. The force struck the blood cult leader's chest, leaving no room for denial or last words. "If I feared the sects, I wouldn't have started this," he said as his subordinates finished off Tran Then's disciples. Everyone gathered as the sect leader returned quickly. Van Q sobbed in relief, knowing his loved one was safe. "Were you attacked by Thien Mayan's subordinates?" Vom asked, puzzled how he knew. Tua, who was at the door of the cultivation room, failed to persuade Luk Keem to return under the pretext of the Black Demon sect's evidence. Everyone rejected his offer. The head elder teased the sect leader, calling him weak and insignificant. "Do you want to spar with me, weakling?" he asked angrily. Thien Mayan's cousin intervened, asserting that only 7 sons of the 7th realm mattered. "You talk too much," he sneezed. "Let me harm him even more," he thought. He left surprisingly soon after uttering those words. Why would he suddenly abandon his plan? Perhaps because we were too aggressive. They thought. They couldn't understand why the blood cult proposed such an offer. Clearly, it wasn't for our benefit, but to buy time. Thien Pham must have devised a strategy to counteract Thien Mayan's move. Meanwhile, in the Demon Sect's cultivation room, Tim Doan executed the plan outlined by the elder. "Whether alive or dead, it won't harm us," he said confidently. However, the unpredictable nature of a lone wolf could still pose a threat. Their intention was not to kill, but to create trouble for the 4 sects. Thane Mayan understood that using force against Thine Pham wasn't an option. They had to resort to cunning. As they were discussing additional dirty tactics, there came a loud knocking on the door from outside, clearly despite the sign indicating not to disturb. Who could that be? Wondered the young master aloud. He ordered his followers to open the door and see what was happening. As soon as they did, they were met with not only the head priest, but also several other priests, all armed and ready. What's going on here? The young master demanded. We've been ordered to bring the two of you to the master's chamber. Don't resist, as we don't wish to resort to force, one of the priests said firmly. Afterward, the political arena led both of them to the crime scene. It seemed crucial, but not as significant as they had thought. Muk Tin Don's eyes broadened in horror as he saw the scene before him, unable to comprehend why the deaths were so gruesome. They had only been at the medical pavilion for 1 or 2 months. However, now they realized the situation was much more dire. Lai Ho Min had been waiting here for a while for the two of them to arrive. I'll make this brief, he said to the innkeeper. These two are responsible for the incident. I don't understand what you're saying, the young master replied. Swanma Sect explained that they were simply exchanging martial knowledge in the cultivation room and hadn't gone anywhere else. But the innkeeper didn't bother to respond and hinted for them to look at the corpses. Tin Don grew even more afraid, especially upon seeing Han Duat Truk's death. He had lost too much blood due to his severed arm. But his complexion was so dark, likely due to the poison. Why was it that the poisoned one wasn't Than Pham but him? Lai Ho Min led them to the other corpses, and the crowd gathered closer to the bodies, especially King Fuse. It was evident they wanted the two to understand the cause of death. The blood cult's demonic sword technique was dominant. Tin Don understood. It must have been set up by the protagonist. Before they could plot anything, Van Cam Bat's technique had already dealt with the blood cult's bloodline. How did Nu Hai and Van's traces end up here? He was the sect leader. Even if it was his faction, both the Grand Master and he would be implicated. It seemed they would be mistaken as the culprits. Just as they were planning, Thin Mind's transmission warned against speaking out. There's a secret in the 5th floor's Nu Hai and Van scripture, he said. Whoever learns it, I'll take care of it. Don't stir up trouble. Just stay still. Your tactics are clever, but using Nu Hai and Van scripture is a mistake, the elder said. You're right, replied the innkeeper. Thine Pham may have learned that technique after passing the 5th year exam. It was indeed the Black Demon Sect's toxic martial technique. Both continued from one surprise to another. What exactly was going on? The blood cult of the blood cult had distinctive signs. He didn't just die from Nu Hai and Van's technique, but also from the demonic sword technique. Upon realizing this, Thin Mayan couldn't contain himself any longer. He knew that technique belonged to him. It was a reality he had created himself. The first elder of the blood cult had innovated it, so only with the guidance of the Dark Blade Master could one attain such high mastery within the sect. Only the sect leader and Thin Mayan had learned it, as it was only in the 3rd exam that he performed a few moves on the priests. What exactly are you up to, Than Pham? He thought. 3 years ago, he only appeared once. How could he reproduce it in just a moment? This was something even their patriarch couldn't achieve due to his loss of composure. Muk Tin Don claims to himself. Someone intentionally set this trap up. I and the sect leader have been in the cultivation room from evening until now. How could he have killed these people? Even the Devil's Guardian responded. What kind of trap? You seem to know why they gathered here, don't you? Indeed, if they wanted to avoid involvement, the two must confess everything. Only Thin Pham will benefit. Muk Tin Don silently vowed not to let the master be expelled from the Devil's Den or lose his position as sect leader. Seeing no one else speak up, the innkeeper ordered his subordinates to escort the suspicions for interrogation. This leaves Thin Mayan's cousin, Chatda, pointing fingers at Thine Pham's fabricated schemes. After hearing this, the innkeeper signaled for the questioning to stop. The young master of the blood cult felt disheartened, not knowing what else to do. His cousin had already revealed the plan of the 4 of them wanting to assassinate the sect's head elder. The one with the motive to kill was indeed Thin Pham. Just as they were about to speak, the protagonist appeared. Why are we the ones being blamed when it was the perfect opportunity that the British had planned for? Let them speak the truth. There's no need for us to come forward. Everyone is equally respectful to the ceremony, with the elders before getting to the point. Only those 2 cowardly individuals were still standing quietly at the tavern. Despite the reminder from the landlord, it seemed like they didn't want to come out much. Then he had to raise his voice to warn them vaguely, and finally they had to obey. Seeing their elder brother doing it, Muk Tin Don had to follow suit. All of these are traps set by the other 4 sections aimed at us. Why would suddenly they shift the blame onto us for killing them? How can I observe the surroundings with all these bodies? After a while, the protagonist kept repeating that the cause of death was due to the conflicts between the sects. Thane Min began to fear more. The overall sect leader assessed that Bui Dong Kang's death was due to internal injuries from Hien Van's sect leader, resulting in his demise. And finally, Bax Don Chu got entangled with the poisonous spirit leader of the mysterious ghost sect. It's true, the sect leader, if I were the culprit who killed them, would definitely need to know both poison skills and various martial arts. But according to the opinions of the Geoda, everything we see is just 5 people stabbing each other. After hearing the words of Fan Pham, Thien Min gradually understood the initial situation. Initially, they thought he did it to avoid fighting anyone in the match. But considering the sections of those 5 people based on the traces on their bodies, they couldn't know the real culprit. So your purpose is to make the 5 great sections turn against each other. Indeed, this incompetent little master has been criticized. The tavern owner, who had long been an ally of the protagonist, seemed very satisfied with this handling. He no longer hesitated, so he took both of them back to await trial. Then all the bodies were returned to their respective sections. I also attached a letter stating that we will detain Thien Mayan and Muk Tin Don until the sect leader and elders returned and did well. If only seeing the bodies of the descendants, it would be difficult for anyone to accept. Although Lai Ho Min knew who the culprit was, but couldn't understand how he could create the authentic techniques of each sect. Anyway, this will make the 5 great sects contradict each other. Now he has truly grown into a real sect leader, fulfilling the long-desired goal of seeking revenge for the sect. At this point, while families are grieving bitterly for their slaughtered children, seeing the wife crying beside the corpse, Bax Van Su angrily said that he had intended to postpone it until the soul of the father could rest in peace. But perhaps they had exceeded the limit. Bax Tu Vu also agreed that they couldn't let the Hien Ma sect continue to mock them. Some blamed the leader of the Hien Ma sect, so they refused the 6th test and yield to the leader of the solitary ghost sect. Therefore, the houses are now in confusion. The martial arts wives have despised the solitary ghost sect, so we must behead that woman with the paper to vent our anger for the father and sister. Everyone has decided firmly, even though they are busy with the funeral, they still have to take revenge. After all, they are just like us, so no one can lose such a good opportunity. First, bury them and then order to gather all the forces of the solitary ghost sect within the sect's boundary on the following day at midnight on guard duty at 3, according to the plan. Bax Van Su and his disciples disguised themselves to sneak in. The intention of them was to fight quickly and concisely, not to leave any traces. More than 10 shadowy figures flew into the courtyard of the first elder's house. However, coming here, they realized something was wrong. We've reached the inner courtyard, but where is everyone? Bax Van Su realized for sure that it was a trap behind them, echoing the sound of bows shooting out a rain of arrows aimed straight at their location. Those arrows are poisoned. Everyone, quickly avoid them. After a while, only a few remnants remained, and the other side hadn't shown up yet. They had already anticipated that we would attack by surprise, so we have no way to retreat now. Fight with all your might. The people of the Solitary's ghost sect will attack whoever they encounter. This was no different than taking evidence to fight against a rock. A figure suddenly appeared from nowhere. You're indeed not using any means when one person in the group rushed forward to gag the old man. But before he could scratch an itch, he was struck far away, hitting the old man while comparing the Solitary ghost sect to just a bunch of meddling rats. Bax Van Su couldn't stand it, so he actively confronted your house, the little master of the Solitary ghost sect. Your talent in martial arts and intelligence are truly mediocre. Indeed, with a few basic moves, he could easily subdue him. The remaining few seemed worried about their senior brother, the first lady, the sect leader, who had just shown up. Without the sect leader present, why do you look down on us? Why did the other 2 rush to attack without any precautions? Because this woman is not that simple. Just a glance is enough for 2 top-level techniques. Van Ung and Thua Vu also reluctantly went down to Hoang Tien to make friends with the sect leader of the ghost sect and the old white sister. Now it's just Bax Van Su, the old man, continuing to control and make them kneel down for interrogation. It's unbelievable that the high in my sect still has experts. Damn it, I thought she was just the wife of the sect leader. It turns out she has been hiding her power all along. I just didn't like to let it show. I was about to say a few more words of hatred, but I also share the same fate as those guys before. With a light slash, the head of the little master of the solitary's ghost sect fell. After that, they also dealt with all the remaining stragglers in the inner courtyard. The subordinates then mentioned Thin Mean's matter. Tomorrow morning, they will send someone to the Ghost Sect Tavern to guarantee for Kong Tu and the young master. It's unnecessary to go outside. Perhaps Thane May needs time to repent because he was too arrogant and fell into the opponent's trap. I was also planning to teach him that the sect leader's seat cannot be easily obtained. The martial arts wives requested loyal servants to investigate Thine Fan's entire background, starting with Jiang Giahan, who was just a maid stabbings in the back, so she wanted to punish her properly. She is worried that her son's strength is not enough, so she plans to come forward to reassure him first. Time passed. It's been 4 days since the incident of the sect leaders of the 4 great sects died, all of Thane Mayan's subdivisions. Out of confusion, withdraw from the fight due to fear. Therefore, it can be understood that the Ghost Sect Tavern now is no different from Than Fam's territory. The martial artists, during the neutral period, also actively sought to join as disciples. However, loyalty is valued more than anything else, and the protagonist did not accept anyone. Additionally, there are 2 cases of offspring of fathers and grandfathers reluctantly joining. Tama Trak and Lesa Am of the Hai Dao sect. This decision made the 6 Swords very worried because both of them were previously subordinates of Thane Mean. I understand the intentions of the sect leader, but if you want to become the little sect leader, you must have at least 12 sect leaders of the top-ranking sects joining. So far, he has only been focusing on studying without supporting anyone, so I find it quite regrettable. With just 5 people, they have met the required number, and all the remaining 6 Swords also agree with Ta Kim Vu's opinion. However, Thin Pham found an easier way just 2 days ago. Why the sudden change today? That's why today I will leave the Ghost Sect Tavern. The subordinates were quite surprised, so I explained. There are 2 reasons why I graduated early. One is to recruit members for the section through different means. The other reason is that currently all 8 elders, including the sect leader, have gone to the martial world of Trum Nguyen. This means that the 5 great sects currently don't have a sect leader, but it's not something too serious. However, Ho Kasong Ho spoke up. The first sword volunteered to accompany him on this trip. Next was Van Q, and the last one to finish the exam was Bok Kai. For them, once they finished the 5th test, they were free to do as they pleased. Although there are still concerns, I will assist the sect leader. I apologize for gathering everyone to announce this matter. The remaining members are requested to follow. Thine Pham reminded, stay in the area, focus on training to enhance your skills, and understand the situation after the 6 Swords. It's for safety's sake. Don't speak but act. Carrying an unnecessary burden will only tire you out. So Obong is currently quite confused because he can't follow the old man. After pondering for a while, he finally spoke up. I will support the sect leader. Everyone, stay and quickly become stronger. In reality, the protagonist's #1 follower is the weakest and can't compete with the 6 Swords. I also have brotherly affection, so I'll turn a blind eye and let him follow. As for the rest, chaos ensues because only Hobong receives favoritism from your house. Deal with that mess yourselves. I'll go ahead. With that settled, Than Pham and his subordinates went to the Phantom Devil Sex Manor. It's late at night, so the guards recognize the unfamiliar visitors. They wonder why he chose the rest time to disturb the master. They're unsure of the business with the Phantom Devil sect. 2 guards had to prepare to confront as they'd never seen your house visit at this hour. Is there something wrong? As usual, Than Pham is polite and presented his senior elder card, requesting a brief meeting with the 11th senior elder. Upon seeing the number 12, the guards immediately paid their respects, informing the 12th senior elder. The 11th senior elder will report back to the section leader. Please wait a moment. Ho Bong felt the conversation and style of speaking were strange. Why did they look so unfamiliar? Van Q has been here since childhood, so he can't remember anything. He just hopes the sect leader can handle it. If only the patriarchs could accompany him for a few words. Later, someone with heavy makeup approached and introduced themselves as the overseer of the Phantom Devil sect. With fair skin, white powder, blue eyes, and red lips. It's finally clear. Hobon thinks too much. Just as they finished greeting, the other person mistook Gu Wangjit for the 12th senior elder. The first sword felt embarrassed, so he turned straight to the sect leader. It's disrespectful. The hostess offers refreshments for the next 10 days, as it's late for tea and snacks. Although hospitable, there are some strict rules here as it's a private visit. Those unrelated are not allowed. Apologies, but our host is quite shy. Ko Von Kat warns if the sect leader's safety isn't guaranteed. Don't blame Dao Kim Vo Tin for being both good and loyal. But our sect leader isn't impolite to the extent of disregarding the senior elders of other sects. Due to the chaos, the overseer allows only one person to enter, following Van Ku's quick plea. It seems these two recognize each other and agree to enter immediately. Inside, numerous figurines are placed around the courtyard. It's eerie from the outside, and it's even more unsettling inside. Afterward, Thin Pham and his subordinates entered the reception room. Both were surprised by the scene before them. There were 5 individuals dressed alike, with identical hairstyles and gestures. It's truly baffling. Home Wai is here. Although I've heard of him, seeing Mux So Thai in person makes me even more impressed. One person from the corner speaks up, claiming to be the sect leader of the Phantom Devil sect. Van Kuya immediately reminds the sect leader that this person looks different from the senior elder we met before. I know he's cunning, but what's going on? Ko Vuong Nat politely greeted the Thapman Hat elder. Van Ku followed suit, accompanying the sect leader from the Melong sect. It's been a while since we met. After listening, the opposite party looks surprised. It's been a while since we met before you joined the Ghost Sect Tavern. I met you and your senior elder. Indeed, it's prudent to be careful with that. The third sword's transmission confirmed with Thin Pham that he's the true senior elder. He doesn't care about the matter and just gets involved. Do you know why I came to meet you? It's not just to receive the gem from the sect leader. You just won a battle as the sect leader in the sect war and left the Ghost Sect Tavern to meet me. Is there any other reason? To help everyone understand better, there are 2 ways to become the junior sect leader. The first is to participate in the 12 faction leaders' assembly of the superior sects. The second is to be recognized by one of the 12 elders as the junior sect leader. The fact that the elders of the Jade Card sect have presented their Jade cards is evidence of their recognition of the junior sect leader and their pledge of allegiance to him. Therefore, Tien Pham doesn't hide his intentions. He will no longer use his status as an elder of the sect, but instead requests to meet privately with him as a candidate for the junior sect leader. From the beginning, he has regarded him as a candidate for the junior sect leader. To receive the Jade card containing the loyalty of the elders, one must overcome a challenge to deserve it. Indeed, the sect leader here has prepared 2 trial challenges for the protagonist. The first is to test his ability to see through things. Does he know who among them is the sect leader? This is difficult because everyone's appearance is flawless, and their wrinkles and beards are the same. Furthermore, it's unclear how he managed to make their anger appear similar, as it's the dedication of the sect leader that creates such a dangerous atmosphere. While explaining the rules of the competition, Tien Pham interrupts, claiming he has already figured it out. The other person is surprised, but only looks towards the Grandmaster's direction, pretending not to understand, as nobody has spoken yet. Therefore, he also acts ignorant, as nobody has spoken yet. Could it be that he thinks Tien Pham is the sect leader? Van Ku raised the matter, reminded the Grandmaster that the rules require him to identify only a few among the similar people, not specifying that there are 5 people here. Just because of that sentence, he assumes Tien Pham is the sect leader. Such a biased choice is too easy and would miss many opportunities. Before finishing his sentence, the protagonist's luck causes him to draw his sword in fear, as this action is too careless. Immediately after, the clash of key power stops this action. Indeed, this explanation is too exaggerated. Why do you know so well, Naman? He doesn't bother explaining much. He just says he's passing on the story. Returning to the initial greeting, both parties still show surprise and curiosity about meeting again. Van Ku of the Demon Dragon sect seems a bit hesitant. Before responding, Tien Pham noticed a very small detail. If it were true, they wouldn't speak warmly. It must be someone spreading information to speak like that. Therefore, Tien Pham reveals his true intention to see who reacts the fastest. However, the opponent quickly responded without any mistakes. At that moment he understood. Could it be that the vocal cords are not damaged? Yet sound can still be transmitted. Eventually, Nano has to intervene to handle a system that can hear even the smallest sounds in the main hall. After adjusting the frequency, he detects another sound. Someone has transmitted sound very quickly, so the fake sect leader quickly follows suit, not making a single mistake in his words. It's because of Nano that he discovered who transmitted the sound after Van Ku greeted each time. He always had to wait for a while before responding. Therefore, he thought of who transmitted the sound, because no one else here has vocal cords. Whether it's dumb or transmission, he deliberately put it in first to distract him, unexpectedly setting his own trap. After speaking, Fap Not, the elder, apologizes lightly and greets Tin Pham again, temporarily passing the first trial. If that's the case, let's start the second challenge right away. After speaking, the sect leader punches him straight in the face, but it's just a pretense. His power is not ordinary. The demonic image technique continues to unleash sharp claw attacks, with morphing images seems wanting to gouge out the protagonist's eyes, who is still passive and resisting. The sword Kai in his hand strikes forcefully at the chest first, and then the whole body, throwing him out of the arena. Van Ku is too worried, but can only remind the Grandmaster to be a little careful. Although he was hit, he hasn't suffered any serious injuries yet. We are fighting the Grand Hall, but it seems like the guests from the street are almost gone. They claim not to understand this martial art, but Tin Pham has skimmed through it in the 5th floor library, which is markedly different from the textbook. I heard that he defeated the demon sect leader, so many elders are expecting a lot from him. Despite appearing feeble, he's actually a formidable monster. Although I have the qualification to fight him, I haven't tried it yet, so sparring with him is sufficient for now. Besides, he's received the transmission of sword techniques, so he can also be considered a master of swordsmanship, right? If that's the case, I'll also use sword techniques to confront him. This is our sect's unique martial art, the demon saber technique. Upon hearing this, Tin Pham drew his white dragon saber, ready for combat. Seeing the aura in his hands, the sect leader couldn't help but admire. Truly magnificent, the treasure saber. This fight promises to be very interesting. So fight with all your might as if you're battling a white tiger. After saying this, both accelerated and launched attacks. Their full force was directed into the martial spirit as they clashed. The sound of metal clashes loudly, alerting the guards outside. Started by the chaos, they rushed in to intervene. However, before they could act, dozens of strikes hit the first and second sword disciples. Ta Ma, perhaps hesitating, mentioned Ngai, the military commander. Tin Pham engaged fiercely with the sect leader, displaying intense combat. The sect leader taunted, "Can you retrieve the jade pendant from my hand?" Aware that it's difficult to counter the vortex saber technique, Tin Pham had to resort to his ultimate move to handle the situation. Swiftly, he attacked, causing a disruption in the sect leader's defense. Helpless, the sect leader prepares to face his demise. At this moment, the first elder's inner courtyard, heavily damaged, caught his attention. Spotting the approaching sect leader, he was about to inquire, but was intercepted by someone in the courtyard. Reacting quickly, he leaped to avoid the powerful strike, displaying the crane technique of the celestial archery. Although small, it was enough to thwart the attack. In the meantime, Nat Keem and 2 others arrived to assist, all 4 engaging in a desperate struggle against the sect leader's forces. Tamai realized his thoughts were accurate. All the subordinates here wore identical masks. It seemed they were all ruthless and cunning. Mockingly, he asked, "Don't you know fear?" Finally, when Bai Xi stepped forward to respond, Chubat, in anger, stopped him. He then presented the devil's token to introduce his identity. Bai Xi inquired if he was the son of the former sect leader Vong Heen. Enraged by the answer, Chubo criticized his father's lack of proper education, demanding an apology if his words had offended him. Explaining their intrusion into the inner courtyard due to encountering an issue, he identified himself as the 12th elder of the sect. Tin Pham, could it be the esteemed guest personally welcomed by the sect leader, the 7th young master? Before anything more could be said, the intense clashes shook the attention of both sides. Our sect leader encountered an issue. So how can we stand idly by? Let's see what's happening there. Al Kung refused to interfere, stating he restricted the authority to decide on this matter, so we must resort to fighting. We can't prolong this any longer. You are still young, so I'll give you a chance. If you retreat now, I'll inform the sect leader, ensure the safety of Thang Kong too. The turmoil in the inner courtyard intensified, causing even more damage. The nearby wall eventually collapsed under the strain, adding to the chaos. At this point, the protagonist group stood, puzzled. Kung, with closed eyes and furrowed brows, seemed perplexed. When he opened his eyes to inspect, he was truly astonished. A long cut extended from the sect leader's position all the way to this spot. Such a serious matter couldn't be ignored. The group with the 6 swords quickly followed, recognizing the severity of the situation. Almost caught in the crossfire, Hon Lai narrowly avoided being cleaved in half. Truly disenchanted by the power unleashed, he realized the true monstrous nature of Than Pham, believed to be the demon of the Heavenly Devil Sect. In light of this, he proactively paid respects to the first elder of our sect. The leader of the demon sect acknowledged Than Kong Tu as the junior sect leader and requested him to accept the token of our sincerity. Just as Ao Kung rushed over, everyone finally got a glimpse of the true appearance of our sect leader. He arrogantly followed behind, taking the opportunity to express gratitude. Our sect leader was unharmed, as promised earlier. He guaranteed Than Kong Tu's safety and was received with proper courtesy. So it turns out he always wore a mask. He never revealed his true face. Only before the sect leader could one uncover it. If the junior sect leader were to ascend the sect leader's throne, then we would see. But Honda is the sect leader's biological son, isn't he? Van Q spoke before leaving the demon sect's tavern. She was the first to encounter them, and had been trying to persuade them. However, they insisted they couldn't take sides without the sect leader's orders. Although she knew they also wore masks, they maintained a polite demeanor and referred to their father as the sect leader. That's as far as she knew. Hon Mai sincerely confessed that it was impossible for us to learn the heart technique of our demonic sect. Our demon disciples have strong demonic auras, so we must be sterilized from childhood to learn it. Hearing this, both Honda and Ko Vong Kat felt fortunate not to have been exposed to such a sect. Honda was both adopted and a disciple, so what they heard here today should be erased from their minds. Just as they mentioned this, there was a dangerous air. Then they shifted to express admiration towards Ko Vong Kat. Following this, they asked Van Chu when she would reveal the truth. However, she was immediately stopped. She planned to reveal it when the sect leader returned. Then they will confront the sect leader. Soon, everyone knew the true identities. Only Than Pham knew this years ago. After a while, they finished discussing, feeling regretful for not being able to entertain the guest properly. If it's not inconvenient, could they escort the guest from the demon sect back? Not knowing which sect they belonged to, Ao Kung intended to inquire in advance. Thanking the elder for his kindness, he requested to bring someone along. Then he will go alone. That's settled. Than Pham's group bid farewell to the sect leader and headed towards the southern inner court of the Heavenly Devil Sect. It had been a long time since they last visited, and their subordinates didn't know their home, so they decided to invite them for a visit. As they approached the familiar gate, the protagonist was filled with various thoughts. Everything remains neat and unchanged. The guardian of the river was as diligent as ever, rising early every morning to clean. Finally, they could meet him again. They wondered what expression he would have seen them grown so much. As the gate closed, they all entered. Inside, Van Q looked around in curiosity. Suddenly at the door, Than Pham paused at her strange behavior. Worriedly, he asked what was wrong. She seemed scared. He couldn't feel any anger from the guardian. His belongings were still the same. Surely there was no reason for him to leave at this hour. Yet he couldn't feel any warmth in the room. It has been 3 or 4 days since anyone lived here. If there had been signs of a struggle, he could have guessed. Like if the guardian had been kidnapped, those offenders would be more skilled than him, he thought. Nano, scan the entire house and the area under the garden to confirm if there are any signs of intrusion, he ordered. 5 minutes later, the scanning process was completed. The system indicates an abnormality not far away. Than Pham rushed down to check it out. There was a blurry sword mark. Not left by a physical sword, but rather a sword aura. If he could visualize the chant, you could easily search for clues. Ko Vong Kat also approached to inspect it with the sect leader. Mumbling to himself, he suddenly looked frightened. This was the first time Than Pham had seen him so silent, like a volcano before erupting. So when he said that the guardian wasn't any different from his father, was it because he was told so? Ta Ma deduced that among the 6 great sects, only 3 used the sword demon sect, the enigma sect, and the dark sect. The Enigma sect holds a grudge against the other two sects, so they wouldn't concern themselves with us. They must be cautious, perhaps taking advantage of this act. All Kung showed favor to our sect leader, so why don't we try searching in the other sects? It's said that the elders are not present here, making it easy to infiltrate.